Got my watch on. It was a little delay here, everybody, because my watch wasn't on. And I don't really use my watch during the podcast, but I do know that sometimes if I raise my arm up like this, you can see the. Well, now I realize now when I look at the video part of it, you don't see the you don't see the cool part of the watch. It's just like the natural thing for me to do is to raise my arm up like this, and that's just like the like that part of the watch, and that's not why you wear the watch. At least maybe some watches are like that. Like, look how nice this watch is. This is the bottom of it. That's effort. That's like me showing off my watch. Like, oh, how is everybody doing today? Hello, what's going on? And then me showing off. I don't know. My dad got me this watch, and he got me a different watch first, and it was his old watch, not like a historically old, not like an heirloom or whatever. Which, by the way, why are they called heirloom tomatoes? Like, does it feel weird to you to eat something that also represents something we save forever from family members? Like, these are the heirloom tomatoes. I should do research before I bring this up because there's probably a good but it's like there's so many other words in the world that you could use to describe a smaller tomato, and you're like, well, we'll use the same word that's to describe jewelry that you save, and if you lose makes you sad, and if your child breaks then you kind of resent them for a long time. Like, anyway, tomatoes, they're just smaller tomatoes with the little, what makes them heirloom? Chime in, tomato crowd. If I could hear from the tomato people about this, then I could get some clarification, and I would be much. I know it's not going to happen tonight. I know that no one's going to message me tonight about the heirloom tomato thing. First off, because it is super, super late. I didn't bring up how this is. Welcome to I just got my kid to sleep, but if you can tell by my back, which you can't tell from my background, but if you can tell by the lightness in my voice, not the joy in my heart, because I do miss my son, but I'm on the road. I rarely am on the road on Mondays. Very rarely. We'll get back to the heirloom tomato stuff. Because there's more to grow there, right? Get it? Grow? Because tomatoes are things that grow. So on Monday, very rarely on the road on Monday. That's why we record the podcast on Mondays, because it's called I Just Got My Kid to Sleep. Because when I wanted to do a podcast, what I wanted to do was be like, what's the most difficult time to record it? Well, probably after you get your kid to sleep and you already fell asleep too, and you're like, I just want to finish going to sleep after I clean up, and I know that he's waking up. Like, there's a clock that's ticking in your head, like he's gonna wake up soon. He's gonna be like, Dad, it's morning. And not then, because it's not bad if my son wakes me up in the middle of the night and tells me it's morning. I'm very confident in the fact that it's not morning and that he's wrong. That's totally fine. Like if he is only asleep for like 7 hours, I know you're going back to bed, and that's what's happening. And but it's when it's like 9, because you can sleep 10 to 12. If it's at 9 and he's up, or 8, it's just like, well, what are we doing now? I used to think that he'd wake up because I didn't keep the light out of his room enough. So I bolted blinds into the wall. I rent. And I put blind. I'm not a handyman. Like, when I watched Home Improvement growing up, which was my show, for everyone in the generations before me and after me that criticizes Home Improvement for being the family show that this like Stephen Colbert, Steve Carell, Dana Carvey show had to follow. Listen, Home Improvement was for me. I was those ages, and I had a dad that wasn't like he's a TV dad, but he was my dad, and they were both funny guys. And there were 3 boys. I'm one of 3 boys. I had a mom. They had a mom. That was a lot. Like, there was a lot. They're from Michigan. We were from Indiana. Like, there was a lot to connect to. And I watched every episode that I could of Home Improvement, because that I was finally at an age where I felt like I had a little bit of a say in my bedtime. Like, when Full House was on and Becky gave birth to the twins, I didn't get to see it. And everyone at school got to see it. there might be 2 people that listen to this that relate to what I'm talking about. But I was in like 3rd grade, maybe 4th grade at the time. Full House was on Fridays for the first part of my life. I could stay up on Fridays and watch Full House. I could go to school on Monday and keep up at the water cooler that we didn't have. But like at the water fountain chats, right? That sounds unnecessarily weird. But like playground, what happened on Full House? I know what happened on Full. Like there's a generation of men and women, all genders that loved Full House, loved Home Improvement. And I remember in college there was a behind the scene, or maybe like not behind the music, but like where are they now or whatever on E. And I was a freshman in college, first year student in college at Xavier in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I lived in Brockman Hall. I'm giving out a lot of personal information that doesn't help any kidnappers right now because it's a long time ago. And we lived in Brockman Hall. Brockman was the dorm that there were the bathrooms where everybody could go, like in the hall, everyone on your floor. It was like boys and girls were separate, but like on the floor, whatever, so it was the only building where you got to leave your room to go to the bathroom, and everyone was like, well, no one wants to live in Brockman because you got to share a bathroom with everyone. But it's really the best because you didn't share showers with it. Like it wasn't like open showers, so you had your privacy in the shower, and that you did your brush your teeth or whatever, who cares? But it's a very social experience to brush your teeth and all that stuff. And then also they cleaned it every day because we were freshmen. I think they cleaned the girls too. It wasn't just a boys thing. And not to be gender specific, I'm sure all the genders have all the things that are disgusting when they're in college. I don't think any gender specific is like, they're awesome. People are people and they're dirty. And if you lived in Brockman, they cleaned your bathroom every day. Because the thing about college freshmen across the board, they sometimes aren't clean. And it's not even a thing where like they're dirty in general. It's just like sometimes that's when people started drinking when I was in college, like, and they would do it too much and then they would like throw up everywhere. And if you lived in Kuhlman Hall or Hussman Hall and you shared a bathroom with 2 people and it was just your bathroom, like 2 rooms, I don't think they came and cleaned those. It was like once a week they cleaned those. Some people might be saying you should clean your own bathrooms. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe we should learn how to clean our own bathrooms at that. But I think at some point it was a financial decision of like, if we don't clean these bathrooms, these dorms are going to be unlivable for the rest of the ages. So anyway, Brockman was the cool hall because we had bathrooms that everybody, and I lived right next to the bathroom, which was great because it wasn't even a long walk. I'm very grateful for many things in my life that people are like, oh, it's not that good, but really they're wrong. That was the best. So anyway, there was one night where I walked down to, I think it was my intramural flag football / basketball teammates, Anthony Moscow and Eli Baker. I think it was their room, and there was probably like 10 guys, 17 to 19-year-old men sitting on various places of people's beds and floors in a dorm room for 2 people, watching the Full House documentary on VH1 of Where Are They Now? And I've never felt more connected to the human race in the world. Anyway, Full House was a show that when I was a kid, it moved to Tuesdays, and I wasn't allowed to stay up late enough to watch Full House on Tuesdays. Because in Indiana didn't change times for time change. So like during the summers, it would be on at like 7 or 7:30, which I could do that. Summers, who cares? But during the school year, I had to be in bed by 8 at that age. And it was on at 8. And so I missed it. And I missed the episode in 4th grade where Becky gave birth to the twins. I didn't get to watch it live. I think my mom probably didn't want me to watch it. I remember her saying something like that. My mom was, I think I might have brought this up before, like how, like, I think my mom kind of thought that it would be a graphic multicam sitcom portrayal of birth, but it wasn't. I saw it later. But anyway, I didn't have control over that. But when I got a little older and Home Improvement was around, I was like, oh, I'm definitely staying up. I'm watching every episode of the show. I don't remember how I got here, but I was talking about my watch, that's for sure, and how I fixed a thing, and I'm not a big fixer. That's where we were. So I thought that if I could just get some blinds up, that my kid would never wake me up before 10 hours. That's what I thought it was. I thought if I could control all the circumstances of the sleep room, I turn on a fan, I put up the blinds. The thing with the blind is though, ow, I just hit my funny bone, crazy bone, funny bone. Here's a poll: is you call it a funny bone or a crazy bone? I don't think it's ever been called crazy bone, Michael. Where are you getting crazy bone at? Well, because as a comedian, I'm very sensitive to the word funny, because the minute you say, here's something funny, it's you've just made it harder to be funny. Because part of being funny is not being funny first. And then it's a surprise when something funny happens. And when you're like, here's a funny story on stage. I don't think I've ever said this is a funny story on stage, because it's like, just say what happened and see what they think. And so every story, everything, I'm a comedian, everything I'm saying, maybe not on the podcast because I hadn't thought it all through yet, but the goal of my brand, my experience, is first inspirational education. That's the main goal. I want people to leave the podcast being like, bring it on, world. I have a path to follow to greatness and success in any avenue of my life. I just listened to the podcast called I Just Got My Kid to Sleep, but it should be called I Just Got My Kid to Sleep. Now I'm ready to take on the world, because that's the main goal. I want people to love themselves so they can love. I mean, these are all good things, but the main point is just to be funny and make you forget about stuff for a little bit. Not forever. You got to pay people at some point. Unless you're like super powerful, then no one's going to ask you for money. I think that's how it works. Anyway, I thought that if I could just control all of the circumstances, then my kid would always sleep for 10 to 12 hours. And it hasn't worked like that. Like, I installed the blinds, and like I was about to say, I never felt when I watched Home Improvement like I was Al Borland. I think that was his name. Yeah, because it's Borland. Yeah. I think they made fun of his name so much I can't remember his real name. But I think it was Al Borland. I got to take a drink of water. You might know from the video or from the audio, you might be able to tell. This is a gallon of water. This is my favorite water. I just talked about this with somebody. Comedian Kelly Collette. We did a show together recently. And the server at Go Bananas Comedy Club in Cincinnati, Ohio. Montgomery, really close to Montgomery, Ohio. Which Cincinnati has a dear place in my heart. I was just there. But Kelly and I were at the comedy club, and the server brought over some waters for us. They're very kind, and they were Ice Mountain water. And this is not sponsored by anybody, but maybe that's what people, I don't think people can say that, but Kelly said, that's my favorite water. And I was like, get out. I felt like such a connection at that point because it's my favorite water too. And I've never been able to share that with anybody. You all listening right now might be like, water is water. Drink an Ice Mountain and tell me, here's the thing. Is this going to be the water review episode? Maybe. Is it entertaining and funny? Who knows? Part of this is going somewhere until you hit the dead end and hoping that's when you can be entertaining. Ice Mountain, first off, it's got a really cool green. When you see that green on the label, that means it's natural spring water. And a person who I believed one time told me that natural spring water was the best water to drink because it's like in the earth, you know? I'm going to take another. It's making me thirsty right now. Spring water comes from the spring. Like the springs are connected to the earth. And so when you drink the earth, you become more earth, and you're already earth. So the earth within you recognizes the earth and the water. And it's like, come on in. This is a fun party. But when you drink water, that's like, I don't want to be negative, but like the argument of the person was like, this is the water that's going to make the earth in you see the earth in everybody. he wasn't even pushing Ice Mountain at the time. It was just spring water in general. But I've noticed that, this is a whole gallon. These are hard to find at reasonable prices. Usually they sell them in smaller or like cases of bottles. But it just feels like I'm reading the label now. It says freezing and thawing may cause natural minerals to become visible. Please protect from freezing, which is confusing because it's like they're already in there. So if we see them, why is that bad? I'm holding this up for a long time for no real ads. Why is that bad? We know you're in there. We know you're in there, natural minerals. If I can see you, how much? Maybe I'll like you even more, you know? Maybe I'll enjoy this even more if I know you're in there. If I know I can see you, you know? Why is it? Maybe these natural minerals are like really gross. Maybe they're like blood colored and you'd be like, maybe it's not really spring water. Maybe it's just water of blood, the blood stuff. But it's still, I feel good when I drink it. I enjoy drinking it. And I felt really, you know what the connection was like? Back when Breaking Bad was a show, I was all caught up or whatever by the last 2 seasons, so I'd watch them every week, and it'd be such an emotional experience. And I remember on the day of the finale, I had a show that night, and after the finale, because I was on the West Coast, I went to the show, and there was one other person there who watched the finale too. And I didn't expect to see anybody because I didn't know who watched the show, and you don't want to talk about it with somebody who doesn't watch the show. And it was just it was like, well, I don't even think there were normal words. It's just like, oh, and I felt so seen. And it was just a friend connection that was very mutual. Like, I'm so glad that I get to share. And I don't know if I'd have to ask Kelly if she felt that positive about it, but I felt really supported, because sometimes I feel like when it comes to water, people are like, water's water, but you can like what you like. I can like what I like. Anyway, I don't remember how I get on anything. Anyways, I felt like more like the Tim Taylor character in Home Improvement, because I'm not a building person, but I put everything I could into controlling all the circumstances around my son's sleeping area, but he's still, you know, he'll wake up when he wakes up around me, at least. And I think it's a compliment, really. He's like, I'm so excited to see Dad. I'm not going to let him sleep at all. But if you want to weigh in on the water thing, let me know what you people like Evian, because it was on Seinfeld, which is cool. If you can make a guest appearance on, you know, one of the most, whether you say it's the best or one of the best, it's one of the most, one of the most successful sitcoms of all time. I think it's really good. I watch it before I go to bed a lot. Evian was on that show, and I started drinking Evian before I realized that, and I liked Evian a lot. But when it gets too expensive, that's when it's like, I don't know what the worth of the water is. But if it says purified water, not a huge fan. I think Kelly brought that up too. I should just bring her on the podcast. Kelly brought up how Aquafina is purified. Not a fan. Anyway. The show was fun. Go Bananas is one of my favorite clubs in the world. It's in Cincinnati. If you live there, I think they book good people. I'm not sure, but when I'm there, that sounds cocky. But I'm a fan. Anyway, so I tried to control my kid's sleeping area. It didn't work. But by the way, I got the watch on, and there's no way to show you without showing you. But now I know what time it is. If I look what time it's Cincinnati. I was in Cincinnati. I am so happy about, and you're probably not from Cincinnati, but you could be. And this could be your place. When I say Cincinnati, imagine a place from your life where currently people you love live, and currently people who you don't see that often, but you still feel like a positive feeling towards and had an effect on your life. Plus physical locations that invoke memories and emotions that are nothing but acceptance and joy for the most part. I said nothing but, so it's kind of hard to say. But that's what I feel like Cincinnati is. I went to college there, and my older brother was there, and he has 3 kids. And I've been on the road since Thursday, and I was off the road for a while. And so it's an adjust. A lot has happened. Okay. A lot has happened. And I'll get back to this, but on this show, we're pretty tight with what we talk about. It's very script. I practiced it about 6 times before I run it. It's mostly about inspiration and guiding people to, love themselves and live a better life. No, I'm trying to be funny. Oh yeah. I don't say this is funny on stage because that sets you up. And I don't remember what that was about. But when someone sends me a message about, hey, you should talk about this on the podcast, I'm like, well, I'm going to, because I value you so much, and I can definitely fit it in. So a friend, a sleeper, I just got my kid to sleep, viewer, also known as a sleeper, commented, anybody who listens, that's my word for you right now until there's protest. Nicole asked, which I feel bad because I was supposed to do a show in the town that she could go to see the show. Well, I don't necessarily feel bad because I didn't cancel the show, but we didn't sell enough tickets. A lot of people, my level or age, they post on social media about shows, and like on the side of the show, it'll say limited tickets remaining, which first off, I mean, good for anybody that's selling tickets. But yeah, there's always limited tickets remaining, limited tickets. I got an email from like a sports team. Like, I think it was like the Cleveland Browns or something. It's like limited ticket. Yeah. There's always limited. Oh, so you're telling me that this show, this sporting event, isn't on a hillside where it's available for millions of people to view? That's still limited. So just say, get your tickets now. I'm critical, and that's not fair. But a lot of comedians, they're selling their tickets, and they gotta let you know, like, you gotta get them now. Otherwise, they sell out, and then you'll be stuck. And my experience is a little different, where you gotta get your tickets now to my shows, because if I don't sell enough tickets, then the venue's like, we're not gonna do this, because they say they have to make money, but usually there's shows that are like off nights, and it's just like, what are we doing, So yeah, if you are interested, so if you've seen my stand-up and you're listening to the podcast, but you like this and you like the stand, then you might have already seen this part isn't for you. You just saw a show, if you want to come to another one, feel free, but you don't have, this is more for the people who found the podcast, and there's so many podcast areas out there. Areas, that's the technical term. Apple Podcasts, Sirius. No, it's not on there at all. YouTube, Spotify. There's others, but you found it, and you're like, I gotta see this live when it's prepared and good. I think that you should go to the website, michaelpalsack.com. It's right here. It's gonna it's not gonna I'm not doing graphics. It's 1 a.m. I think I'm in a hotel room. It's 1 a.m. It's not even 1 a.m. It's 1 a.m. LA time. Are you serious? It's 3 a.m. It's so late where I'm at. But it's fine. I just got my kid to sleep. Well, normally, if this is the first episode, I get my kids to sleep, I come do the podcast, but I'm on the road, and I'm not going to skip the podcast just because I didn't get him to sleep. Spiritual, I connected with him. I don't even know when he went to sleep. I used to be like, I got to talk to you every night, but then he'd just be watching Bluey and be like, I'm done. And then he'd hang up, and I can't take that rejection anymore. I felt like there was a time, I got to remember where I was, because I'm going off another place. Wherever we were is going. There was a time in my life where I was in a relationship with somebody, and that happens, it happens to the best of us, where you're in a relationship with somebody. And And it wasn't all bad. You shouldn't even say that. It was very good. There's no reason. You can't quantify. It's not a sporting event. No one's going to win or lose. But sometimes when that person would get angry, they would hang up. And I would talk about that on stage. Because when someone, first off, they would hang up. And there was such a, it worked, I always felt scared that we had broken up, because I don't think I would ever hang up on somebody even if I wanted to break up. Even if I was so angry with them, I wanted to break up with them, I don't think I'd hang up because I'd be afraid that they'd be like, it's over, time to move on, and then it's over. And if I'm going to make something over, I'm going to think about it a lot. That's why I don't start a lot of things sometimes now at this age, because I don't want to have to make it over. And because making it over can be sad. Like if you move to another apartment, then you got to leave this one. I don't want to make this one be the end, because then you got to make it be the end, So even if I was so angry because somebody did, and I wouldn't want to hang up on them, because then they might just think but this person would hang up, and she didn't think that and she would say, and this is, she would say that if we're going to break up, we would talk about it first, which just seems like, well, what's the point of hanging up if we're just going to talk later, this is over, you hug, because if I'm hanging up on somebody, I don't know. I just don't do it. But anyway, when my son, who's a very young child, hangs up on me, I feel this emptiness inside, even though he's not doing it and I'm done talking to you. You were never the person I thought you were going to be. And you were never there at the time when I thought you click. Or there's no clicks. And I was there, by the way, for what I thought I should be there for. Just in defense. But when my son hangs up, I know he's not being you never, because he needs me. He needs applesauce. He very much, I'm the only person in his life that has video games and plays with him, plays those video games. And I don't think that he realizes what's at stake when he hangs up. He doesn't know. When we're talking to my parents, he'll talk to them for a little bit, and then he'll just be like, this is over. And I'll be like, no, you have to say, nice talking to you, because I feel bad for my parents. Do you ever do that as a parent? I feel like my biggest stresses as a parent come from me being worried how other people view my parenting of my son, when it seems like a lot of the people just know he's a little kid and accept him as he is. But I feel like a lot of me is like, no, you got to be nice to these people because they might judge me as a parent otherwise, which is a horrible reason to do anything as a parent. That's my main reason for doing a lot of the parenting is well, if I don't step in now, people are going to look at me and be like, who's this guy's dad? I'll get better. Anyway, if you are watching this podcast or listening and you're like, I got to see him do something good, stand up comedy, go to the website, buy your tickets as soon as they're available, because if we don't sell enough, they just shut it down. But here are the positive. This week, Buffalo is still happening on Wednesday, a Wednesday show in Buffalo, New York. I lived in Buffalo for a time as a child, and I associate, I was a young child, Nintendo with that, because that's when we got a Nintendo. And I remember I didn't play all, we went outside and played too, but I remember that just blew my mind, and I associate that time with that city, and the Bills, and school. Anyway, that wasn't what. But anyways, Buffalo's happening Wednesday, and then everything else is kind of, next week is Peoria, and then Waukesha, and weekends usually we'll keep for sure. Anyway, that was a little side thing. But one of my friends who listens to the show stated, I think it was more it wasn't what do you think about this? It was here's an idea for an episode, which is a very funny way to, maybe not funny, I wasn't going to say funny, a very interesting way to provide to sort of ask a question of me to talk about on the podcast. It's not like being like, hey, will you please address this thing? I would like to hear you talk about this. It's more like, I think you need episode ideas. I've listened to the show every week, which I respect her opinion. I've listened to the show, I watch the show, and I just need you, to have some ideas. But no, she's probably the most supportive. But it was a request to talk about pre-show routine and how I unwind after the show. And so I would like to talk about that now because I know at least one person is interested, and maybe everybody is. That's what they say in school, right? If you have a question, Michael, why do you keep getting off? No, if you have a question, you should just ask it because chances are somebody else has that question too. I remember hearing that as a kid in elementary school and being like, oh, and I still remembered it. And I don't know if it's true. No one ever does, but it gets you to ask the question. I remember they always used to say, no question is a stupid question. And then one teacher was like, there's stupid questions. And I thought that was interesting. Anyway, it's weird what you hold on to in school, right? I want to talk about that. When I was in 4th grade, I think this impacted my life in a very real way. When I was in 4th grade, I had a teacher who told us, I went to a Catholic school, which I liked. I don't know if this was a Catholic idea. I don't think the teacher was even Catholic, but the things they taught were. But our teacher was tired of people like blaming people, I guess. I think she was Catholic because she taught religion, so you'd kind of have to be. At least and she told us every time you blame somebody else, every time you point your finger at somebody else, there are 3 fingers pointing back at you. Finally, I got to show off my watch. I remember that blew my mind. It's weird when someone provides like a visual or a rhyming technique, like teamwork makes the dream work. Well, it must be true because it rhymes. Or like, wow, that visual is real. So I took that in and I was like, oh, every time I blame somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing back at me, And I didn't know what I did wrong, but I knew that I definitely blame people for stuff. Because as a kid, you do that, As an adult, you do it. And so every time I did it, I think part of me felt like, I got 3 things for every one thing. And I don't know what it is, but I felt bad. I didn't know. I went through my whole, life. And then finally, I met somebody and got in a relationship with them. And they found all the stuff that I was doing wrong. And I was like, whew. I feel better now that they're angry at me and hanging up. That's a full circle thing. And that's like that's a past. We're all healed. Whatever. Anyway, that was me having an idea about an old thing I talked about that never really became a thing on stage. But maybe someday, and being like, this could fit here, So this is part of the process, I guess. So the pre-show routine and how I unwind after. So I think when I started out, it was different because I cared more. That's unfair. I care just as much. But I think when you start out, you're like, you're going to the open mic, you got 10 minutes, you got 5 minutes, you're like, what do I do? Because you do a set and it goes great. That's what's weird about stand-up is like, maybe it's like golf. I don't really play golf, but like you can be great for one day, for 5 minutes, for 15 minutes. In your head, at least it can sound great to you, the comedian on stage. You can make a whole room of strangers laugh when you first start one day, and then the next day you can do it and just be like, well, what did I do? That's not right. And I think part of it's experience. I don't know. Part of it's whatever. So you get this in your head like, oh, I should just try to do the really good show every time. And then you do the same jokes and they don't work the same way. Like, well, then you come to the realization of like, well, I can't do the same show every time. Like I can say the same words and do the same thing, but I can't have the same expectation of how I'm going to do it or where they're going to do it because it's a different show. You can have what you're trying to do, what you're aiming for. You can do the thing the way you want to do it, but you can't expect it's all a new thing, which is a great process, a great thing for everybody to learn. So I kind of let go of preparing. Like I remember at some point in my life, I had someone tell me like if you breathe a certain way, it could relax you, or like if you like connect there's something called brain gyms that my aunt is really good about, and if you connect your hands and like cross your feet and take a breath a certain way, like it can really calm. It can make your brain just ready to fire on all cylinders or whatever. And so I would do that. And like, I think the problem with any routine for me, and this is not, is that and maybe now, not to be like, but I'm doing it a long time. Now it's sort of like, it sounds really, cocky but it's like, it always works now. That's what it is. On some level, like if it does, I don't remember a time in recent where it's not maybe like some jokes didn't, or maybe it's like not as fun, but the people watch it and they're happy because you just sort of figure it out after a while. But in the past, or if it's in a high stakes situation or it's a contest or a TV taping or something like that, that you want it to be the best ever. And so I would try to do the things to make it the best ever, but then you realize the thing that you're doing, the breath or the imagination thing, kind of doesn't cause it to be great. What causes it to be great is a mixture of all of the things that happen, like maybe where you're at in the lineup, maybe that's the thing about now. I headline most of the shows, or I go last most of the shows. So the crowd is ready, they're warmed up, it's easier. So when you start out, it's harder hosting or whatever. So all these things mix into it, the environment, what people are listening to, the lights, the sound, it all goes into that. I remember doing a show recently where the chemistry of where the audience was set up and how they were reacting was really distracting to other people in the audience, the way some people were reacting. And so just that made the show not as fun for me. And I think if someone else was watching, they'd be like, oh, that's the guy that said he does great all the time? Not at all. Just because part of the audience was reacting in a way that just distracted the part of the audience. And so they couldn't ever cope. You want your audience to be like a group, a cohesive. That's why when someone talks during the show, part of it is distracting to you as a comedian, but part of it why you can't is because like you're making your experience more important than the groups, and you're all a group. That's why you came to the show, to watch. So you're the group, and like one time a guy was talking laughing and talking to his friends during the show, and I saw it before I went on stage. So I was like, hey, you got to like get rid of that person probably. I don't know. I try not to kick people out, but they were like talking. And so then on stage, when I got on stage, they were talking too. And then, and so they kicked him out of the show. And as he was leaving, he was like, it's a comedy show. He yelled it from the back. And I was like, yeah, that's why you can't talk, because people all can't laugh if you're distracting them. Anyway, that all to be said. When it comes to like a really important show or something you want it to happen, I realized that everything I did before didn't really matter. As a comedian, it's not like an athlete necessarily where you got to like stretch and warm up or eat certain foods. You just have to really, for me, be yourself. And I found when I did Last Comic Standing the second time, when I moved on, I got rid of all of the things that I tried to do before a show to be good. Any sort of like brain gym or like breathing thing, I would just be off stage and be like, I'm not doing any of it. And I would just go on stage and just do the jokes. And that was when I had the most success ever in the situation. And maybe if I had done things, I would have went better, but I found a great relief in letting go of any sort of rituals and just realizing it's just a person talking. So pre-show, for a very, very basic thing, I try to like have my shirt, I steam my shirt so I'm not wrinkled, and I try to get to the show. And then eating, I used to be like, I don't want to eat before I go on stage. And then when you're a couple of years in, you get to a show and you're like, well, this is how you're getting paid, and you're like, well, I'm definitely eating now. And I'm not worried about it. And I think that's important. Like, you don't have to eat before you be able to eat before you go on stage. If it's not ideal for you, like I'll try, like for a while, I was like, well, I'm not going to eat ice cream before I go on stage. But then last week or last Friday, I was in Marietta, Ohio, a very nice town. And they had like an ice cream, little like temporary like truck that was just always parked there, but only open at certain times. And I was like walking by it, and it was a couple hours before the show, but it's like, I'm getting ice cream right now. I'm not going to not get, I'm going to get ice cream and then feel like it's good for me to eat ice cream. And it was fun. I think the show was fine. So yeah, so I mean, eating isn't greatly important. So I think that's it. Before I go on stage, I think with the thing that I don't like, I used to not worry about it all, but I try to go to the bathroom because you don't want to have to go to the bathroom on stage. But I'm not at an age where that's like usually a problem. Like I do 45 minutes to an hour, I can hold it. And I used to do that. I used to be like, I'm not going to worry about that anymore. I'm going to drink a lot of water before I go on stage and not go to the bathroom and just see what happens. And it was very invigorating is the word I go to when I don't know what I'm talking about. But like very nice to know that this thing that I was afraid of happening didn't happen. And if it did, it'll work out. Like sometimes I become obsessed with making sure that my zipper on my pants is pulled up. Like I'll check it a lot, or it's buttoned. Sometimes I'll check it multiple times before I go on stage, and then I'll go on stage and also try to check it, which is awkward for everybody. Like usually I feel like people can't tell. But that doesn't feel good because like, I think it's based off this fear of like, oh, I'm not going to have my pants zipped up when I go on, which is like, I live most of my life with my pants zipped up. So what about now would make it zipped up? So I'm going to try to let go of that too. I do think one thing that I think is very helpful right before I go on stage is I try to like, and this is going to go against what I said earlier, but I feel like I know more now. Right before I go, I try to just like empty my brain and just focus on my breath or a sound or just what's going. I listen to the person before me and just try to enjoy it because I want to be really present. And most of my thoughts, sometimes most of my thoughts, unless I'm in a good mood, can be kind of like I was just talking about, like, am I comfortable? Am I going to be okay? And if I just let go of that and try to listen to whatever is going on, that makes me feel good immediately. And that's a great place to go on stage. So yeah, that's kind of it. And if I have merch, I want to bring it on stage, but it's really is chill. It's not a magic trick. It's not a sporting event. It's like, I love the Olympics. It's not that. Doing stand-up comedy, like I used to hear. I heard that when Oprah did her show, I was talking about this recently because a friend came to my show and they're like, don't you have to go backstage? And I'm like, well, this is when Oprah did her show, while they were at commercial, she would be talking to someone in the audience and then she would just talk to the camera. And I think that's the goal. You want to make the show feel like you're talking to a friend. And so before I talk to someone who I'm comfortable with, I'm not like, oh, are my pants zipped up? Do I have to go to the bathroom? Because I know that the friend is going to be fine with whatever normal need happens. So I think that's the goal. That would be the main pre-show theory, is like, how do I put myself in a position where all these people that came to see me, I feel like they're my friends. They don't have to feel like I'm their friends yet because they haven't seen me yet. It's good if they do. Like, you could tell when the crowd comes to the show and they're ready to laugh. And I feel that comes from this place of like, well, this guy's going to be funny. And but we like what we're going to see. But if I can go out there being like, these are all people I like, I want to talk to them about this. Not even like I want to make them laugh. Like, getting the laugh is like a bonus benefit, but I want to talk to these people. I want to connect with them. You can't, I think it's hard to perform and think about the laugh. You'll know it's there, like it's ingrained when you hear it, you feel it, but I think I just want to go out there and talk to people and feel things. And even though, and this is maybe behind the curtain a little bit, even though you're doing a lot of the same stuff for a while until you turn over the act or whatever, or like the new stuff is in there and new stuff always feel new. You want it to feel like you're telling them for the first time. And that's the magic trick, I guess. So all preparation that can lead to that is, I mean, it's kind of like acting. Like, I had an acting teacher one time who was like, I don't care what you do before you go up, just be really good. And I think that's what I've abandoned everything to. Sometimes writing something would help, like writing like whatever you're thinking, like letting go of whatever it is can be inspiring. Or sometimes people do the improv. I read this in a book one time. I think it's stand-up comedy, the book where you do an improv game with yourself, where you take a pen and you think of all the things that it could be that's not a pen, and you play that, which is a good way, like, kind of get your brain off of what you're worried about or thinking about. And then unwind after. That's something that is good for everybody that I don't really do. I think like even before I was a dad, I would get on the road and I would be like, well, I would only feel good if I got the things done I wanted to get done. So I would just, after the show, I would just keep doing. I'm a comic, but especially now, there's so many things you can do, like a podcast or whatever, that you can just always be working. And I think it is important and it is fun to have a day like everybody else. Like my dad, you know, he's retired now, I think. I don't really know. I think he's done, retired working. But like he would go to work for, 10 hours some days and then come back and he would watch TV for a half hour. And I feel like that's having something fun that doesn't make any sense, that's no benefit to you professionally or personally or health wise, is a very healthy way to just be like, oh, I'm a human and I get to do that. Like I always eat after my show. Like I've tried to do the thing where you eat earlier but then after the show, I'm like, well, what, do I got to go to bed without dinner? And then they're like, well, you already ate dinner. Well, I'm eating more now. So I always eat and I'll watch TV, but I think I could do a little more of like, oh, I'm just going to watch TV or I'm going to, I don't know, read for fun. That probably sounds lame to people, but it's like, just doing a thing. Like I noticed in life now that if I'm driving after the show, that's way less fun. I don't think I want to do that anymore unless I absolutely have to, because I did it recently. And I thought about this because like when you're done with the show and you get to go back to your hotel, and for me, it's all about being by myself, because friends are fun and that's fun. But other comedians are fun too. But, and especially since I became a parent, like your time alone is really precious, and like I get to watch what I want to watch. I get to do what I want to do, and it just feels like all your loved ones get in the way of that, and then that feels bad because you're like, well, I love these people, but I just want to be alone, And so I think that's a really good way to unwind, is like, spend time with whoever you want to or whoever you have to, but also have the time of like, oh, now this is just me, for me. And yeah, I think, it's normal unwind stuff. Watch TV. I got to find a show though. Like I still need to watch the rest of Succession and Better Call Saul and Peaky Blinders. And then I also recently, as a birthday gift, my younger brother gave me an original Nintendo game system, and I brought it with me because I think I can hook it up to the TVs, and I think that'd be fun to play before I go to bed or whatever. Because it can definitely, people know this, like if you have a job where you clock in and clock out, or even if you're just expected to be there, even if it's for a long time, you still have a begin time and you have an end time, and that feels good, I think. I don't know. But like as a comedian, since your time on stage is so short work-wise, you can kind of feel like you're never clocked in or clocked out, and I think it's important to do that because it feels good, and feeling good is really, really important. Like, oh, I don't like driving and after the show, because you do the show and then you're like, well, I gotta eat, and so you're eating, and then you're like, now I gotta drive 4 hours or whatever. So now like you're getting to the hotel, and on Thursday I got to the hotel and my name wasn't on the reservation, and then everybody who could handle it were asleep, which I respect the sleep. I'm not upset. No one expected this to happen. So then I'm like calling and traveling around to different hotels being like, is there a room? And it's like 3 a.m. It's gonna be 4 soon, and people are saying no, and I don't believe them. I'm like, you just don't want, in my head I'm like, you just don't want to check. But like finally, I found a room, but then you get to the room and it's like, now it's like 3 a.m. and then you finally get all done, and then it's 4 a.m. and then you're like going to bed and it's like 6, and you didn't even get to unwind at all. So I think if I have the choice from now on of driving after the show or just waking up like at a normal time or a little earlier, I think I'm going to chill out at the hotel at night and then just drive back later, unless I get to actually go home, because home's really nice too. But just there's something about pushing yourself too much that's not unwinding. I guess that's I guess that's what it is. So those were the two answers, and I appreciate. If anybody has requests, or if you're watching the show being like, this has got to get better. Whatever you think, I'm here. I'm doing the show. If you have water ideas, but honestly, this is something I'm talking about because someone asked, and I like talking about it, and I'm really excited because it got brought up too. Because tomorrow, Tuesday, I'm filming a videotaping. I don't know what to call it. Shooting, I think is what's called. A shorter set for Nateland. I don't know if it's Nateland or Nateland. Is it like Cleveland or Disneyland? Nateland. But he has a Nate Bargatze. Bargatze. I know Nate. I should know how to say his last name, but I saw on Fallon, like Fallon said it wrong. And I was like, now do I say it? Was I saying it wrong? And then he's doing a show at Yamava in California, and they were saying it wrong in the ad. And I don't know if he knows that. Anyway, he's having like 3 comics do an episode every month, and they're going to put it on YouTube. So you guys can watch that there. And, I've been thinking about what I'm going to do, and this is the first time that I'm filming something that I really haven't practiced it a lot because I already shot a special, and I'm not doing any of that stuff, so I'm just doing other stuff. And so it's been really fun to just sort of trust and relax, and I'm wondering how it's going to go. Because I remember when I first started doing showcases and contests that went well, I did one for Comedy Central in Chicago, and I don't remember what I did before, but the show went great. And then I made it to the LA round, and I remember before that one, like drinking water to make sure I had water, and then making sure my shoes were tied. Like I did that a lot, like a nervous amount. You ever do something in life where it's like doing the thing is like a nervous thing to do? And then you as a person realize that it's kind of a crazy nervous thing to do. So then that makes you feel more anxious and nervous. Like, so it's not only like, I don't need to check my shoes. I checked my shoes and they're fine. Now it's like, I need to stop checking my shoes because this is insane. And I remember that set out of no real fault of my own. I mean, there was a different environment. Like when you have a hot crowd versus, and this is like way back in the day when you're, newer and less experienced, like it didn't go as well. So I think that's where it led me to be like, before the show, who cares, And sometimes the reverse helps. Like when I did Last Comic Standing, I was very sleep deprived. And stand-up's a good job for that because no one's ever going to fall asleep with a light on them while they're in front of a couple hundred people. So you can be sleep deprived and still turn it on when it happens. And then your brain is so tired that you're not worrying about stuff. And I don't recommend that. I think you should sleep as much as you can. And I think you'll learn how to do better without it. But I'm excited that I got to talk about pre-show because I got to think about what I'm going to do before my show tomorrow. I think I'm just going to try to take my advice and not do anything specific. But yeah, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for reaching out. This has been, I just got my kid to sleep. I know I didn't just get my kid to sleep. Next Monday, I will be getting my kid to sleep before the show. I promise. I just had to stay on the road. I was getting my kid to sleep for almost the whole month of July and all the days, every day. And so when this opportunity to film in Nashville happened, I decided to take it. And I knew that the podcast, from a purposeful standpoint, from an artistic standpoint, might suffer in the sense of not the quality. The quality is going to be as high as ever, but like the overall angle and point of view might be compromised because I didn't just get my kid to sleep. But I hope you understand, and I hope you realize it's worth doing, even though the overall theme of getting my kid to sleep right now has been not consistent this week, but it has been most weeks. And I think you will. But I appreciate it. And thanks for listening. Shout out to Dina Rose in LA. Thanks for the haircut. If you're in LA, she's on Instagram. This name will be right here. No, I don't do graphics. I already did that joke. All right. Thank you. The end.